So it feels like AI came out of nowhere. So let's talk about where this really truly came from. In 2016, the major tech players all came together and they decided that they wanted to move AI out of the lab and into commercialization. So they invested around $1 billion to create a nonprofit that they call it OpenAI. Now, what's interesting is that was 9 years ago. How many of you were aware that this was truly happening in the background? They began working on GPT-1 in 2017. In 2018, Elon Musk, who was involved in the process, actually stepped away because he wanted to embed AI into Tesla, and GPT-1 was released. In 2019, it marked a very big change within OpenAI. They got an investment of $1 billion from Microsoft. All of a sudden, at that point, there became a very big conversation. Are you a nonprofit company or a for-profit company? That debate still is there today. If you look at what's happened in the past month, you see that OpenAI has restructured themselves to allow for both the nonprofit and the for-profit side. The debate, however, between the nonprofit and for-profit side continues to wage within OpenAI. In 2020, they began some of the work on GPT-3, and in 2021, they began to work on images. In December 2022, that's when the world changed. That's when ChatGPT-3 came out, and we all began to use generative AI. In 2023, they were valued at $29 billion, and Microsoft invested another $10 billion there as well. In 2024, we see ChatGPT-4 come out, and we saw a deep integration with Apple. At the end, I'll come back and talk about what we've seen this year and what we see in the future. But what I'm trying to do is lay a foundation for you so that you see that OpenAI and ChatGPT are not a flash in the pan. This is the culmination of a lot of work that led to this point. But what was most interesting from a purely research perspective is how long it took to achieve 1 million users. It took Netflix 3.5 years to hit 1 million users. It took Facebook 10 months, Spotify 5 months, Instagram 2 months, and ChatGPT 2 days. Now, if any of you are sitting out there and have a business plan with the idea of reaching 1 million users in 5 days, please let me know and I will invest right now, because that is extremely impressive as we think about the scalability of ChatGPT in that short amount of time. So where did it all come from? The way that it all came from is, first of all, the Common Crawl, eight years of web pages. Next, it came from Reddit, then internet-based books, and finally Wikipedia in English. Now, let's stop and pause there for a moment. If you're depending upon ChatGPT and the output from ChatGPT, you have to understand that what you're getting out depends on what went in. And all of those were served as the basis for ChatGPT. The reason we bring that up is think about Reddit as a great example. I'm a huge Reddit fan, but there's a lot of parts of Reddit which may or may not be applicable to the broader population. So you have a subset of the population that's creating this. But not only that, imagine if you posted on Reddit 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, did you know that your data was going to be used to crawl for ChatGPT? Certainly not. And there's a lot of implications there when it comes to data privacy and data protection as well, and your own personal data. So what did the engineers do? They took that data and they attempted to make sense of the data. Now, as your coursework, you all know that there's machine learning and deep learning. The difference between them is the nature of the algorithms. So ChatGPT took that lexicon of data and they allowed deep neural networks to be able to make sense of the structure of the data that they had. It took 1.76 trillion calculations or parameters to be able to make sense of that language. So we're talking about 300 billion words, 560 gigabytes of data, and 1.76 trillion parameters. So the engineers trained all the data using those parameters so that the AI system could learn the structure of the data that was contained therein. Then when we ask questions, it responds based upon how it was trained. Now, how about the other LLMs? Google says they're trained on, quote, a data set that is multimodal and multilingual. We don't know. Anthropic, a proprietary data set. Meta, a mix of publicly available data. Grok, Twitter or X. Point being, there's no transparency on what it is that's using to feed these LLMs. Without that level of transparency, how can you rely upon that for your organization? Now, at this point, you're going to say, wait, why did they have this guy come in and talk when he's so negative about AI? Oh, far from it. I'm actually an optimist when it comes to AI and AI solutions. But what I want you to see is that as we think about data privacy, as we think about data, every bit of data has a bias, and that data bias affects what happens. But the real reason why this was such a big deal is that for the first time, AI systems passed the Turing test. So what is a Turing test? The Turing test was said that if an AI acts like a person, we can deem that technology to be quote unquote intelligent. The Turing test came from the 1940s. So we're talking about tests that's about 80 years old. But for the first time, ChatGPT passed it. We put people in a room and they couldn't tell whether they were dealing with technology or dealing with a person. Because what happened was ChatGPT is able to take language and process it, to make sense of it, to represent it, and then to be able to reason and give you an answer. And not only that, it learns over time. So ChatGPT was the first to pass the Turing test. Now, here's the thing. Us as humans, we're very, very good at problem definition. We can figure out what the problem is that needs to get solved, and we can figure out what questions we need to answer. The role that Gen AI should play in your life and in the life of your organization is to help you arrive at the solution. And as we think about this paradigm, what I'm suggesting is the human needs to always stay in the loop. And that's why I call this where mind meets machine. Because if you can figure out how to frame the problem to AI in the right way, AI will help you with the solution. We're not here to take your job. We're not here to make it so that we don't need you. No, no, no. AI needs you to define the problem. But where AI can come in is to help you with the solution. Because AI is more scalable. It never gets tired. It can last forever, and it can improve over time.